In St. Andrews I heard a tall, stately man preach, and he showed me the majesty of God. I afterwards heard a little fair man preach, and he showed me the loveliness of Christ. I then went to Irvine, where I heard preach a well-favored, proper old man with a long beard, and that man showed me all my heart. The first preacher was Robert Blair, who ministered at St. Andrews in Edinburgh for more than a quarter of a century. The third preacher was the great Covenanter and professor of theology David Dixon, whose commentary on the Psalms has been reissued by Banner of Truth and is worth owning. The little fair man was Samuel Rutherford, one of the most paradoxical preachers Scotland has ever produced. For generations, Rutherford has inspired the best preaching in Scotland, wrote Alexander White in 1908. And yet today this man is almost forgotten. He should be known as the saintly writer of the letters of Samuel Rutherford, but most people associate the name with Mrs. A.R. Cousin's song "The Sands of Time Are Sinking," which was inspired by statements found in his letters. This happened to be D.L. Moody's favorite song. Rutherford was born in the little village of Nisbet in the Shire of Roxburgh, about 1600. Apparently, he lived a rather careless life during his youth. "I must first tell you that there is not such a glassy, icy, and slippery piece of way betwixt you and heaven as youth," he wrote to his friend, William Gordon. "The old ashes of the sins of my youth are new fire of sorrow to me." To another friend he wrote, "Like a fool as I was, I suffered my sun to be high in the heaven and near afternoon, but ever I took the gate by the end." He entered the university in Edinburgh in 1617, began his theological studies in 1626, and in 1627 was licensed to preach. That same year he was called to Anwath. His life and ministry there put that little village on the map. 30 years before, the congregation at Anwath had enjoyed the ministry of another man of God, John Welsh, the son-in-law of the famous John Knox. Welsh often left his bed in the middle of the night, wrapped himself in a warm plaid, interceded for the people of his parish. When his wife would beg him to go back to sleep, he would say, "I have the souls of 3,000 to answer for, and I know not how it is with many of them." It is interesting that both Welsh and Rutherford were exiled because of their preaching and their opposition to the king's encroachments upon the church. When he was on his deathbed, Welsh received word that the king had lifted the ban, so he arose, went to the church, and preached a sermon. He then returned to his bed and died 2 hours later. I visited Rutherford's church at Anwath and was surprised to find the ruins of a barn-like building, 60 by 20 feet. It could not have seated more than 250 people, and yet Rutherford faithfully ministered there for 9 years. "I see exceedingly small fruit of my ministry," he wrote after 2 years at Anwath. "I would be glad of one soul, to be a crown of joy and rejoicing in the day of Christ." Mrs. A.R. Cousin put it this way in her song, "Fair Anwath by the Solway, to me thou still art dear. E'en from the verge of heaven I drop for thee a tear. Oh, if one soul from Anwath meet me at God's right hand, my heaven will be 2 heavens in Emmanuel's land." The people of the congregation knew that God had sent them a dedicated pastor. They said to their friends, "He is always praying, always preaching, always visiting the sick, always catechizing, always writing and studying. Often he fell asleep at night talking about Christ, and often he spoke of Christ while sleeping. Spurgeon once preached a sermon in his sleep. His wife wrote down the main points and gave the outline to him the next morning, and he went to the tabernacle and preached it. In 1630, Rutherford's wife died. He was also to lose 2 children during his Anwath ministry. But in spite of difficulties and the smallness of the place in which he ministered, Rutherford never sought to put himself into a larger place. "His own hand planted me here," he wrote in 1631, "and here I will abide till the great master of the vineyard think fit to transplant me."